Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, True Crime and Felines. For my returning subscribers, welcome back my feline friends. For those that are new here, my name is Brandy and every Friday I bring you a true crime case or mystery with one or more of my 14 felines. I hope my videos are entertaining enough that you will subscribe and become a feline friend. So before we start this video, I wanted to give a huge thank you to you guys because I reached 100 subscribers on my channel. I never really thought that would happen. I started this channel out of, well, boredom because of the pandemic. So that's why I decided to start this channel. Now, even though running a YouTube channel takes some work, I actually love it and I'm having a blast. I love interacting with you guys in the comments, so I'll plan to keep going for a while. So thank you to those. It's over 100 now, but thank you to the subscribers. It's just, you guys are awesome. Also, just an FYI, some of you may notice that along with the Meet the Felines videos, which will eventually go away once I get through all my felines, there are some product review videos out there. I have been asked to do those from some fans and some actually cat groups I'm a part of because I have 14 felines, and I myself depend heavily on product reviews, so I thought, well, why not? But just an FYI, any videos that are going up on Fridays are the true crime and mystery videos. So if you're just here for true crime and mystery, just know that any video going up on Friday will be the true crime and mystery, and any other videos that are posted on other days will be either product reviews or cat related videos. Okay, sorry, that intro was way too long. Let's get to the case. So this week's case is a doozy. It's superstition meets cannibalism. So without further ado, let's get started. Leonarda Cianciulli was born April 18th, 1894 in Italy. Now, Leonarda's mother, her name was Amelia, and she was part of a pretty comfortable family. I mean, they weren't by no means rich, but comfortable, and she had many well-off suitors that would like to take her hand in marriage. Unfortunately, there was a man named Mariano Cianciulli that was interested in Amelia, but because he was of lower social class, Amelia wouldn't even look his way. Well, Mariano did not like that. He became angry and became a bit obsessed with Amelia. And one night he caught Amelia alone, dragged her into some bushes, and assaulted her. And Amelia became pregnant due to this assault. When Amelia's parents found out that Amelia was pregnant, she came clean about the assault, but it didn't matter how she got pregnant. Being an unwed mother was so bad back then. So they forced her to marry her rapist. And then because of this, because she was marrying below her social class, even though they were making her do it, she was kind of disowned by the family and left to live her marriage out in poverty. It was really a bad deal. She was married to someone she hated, and she had a kid she did not want. And she blamed Leonarda for her current situation. After all, if she wouldn't have got pregnant, she could have married one of her other suitors and kept the assault a secret. So due to this, Amelia was actually very emotionally abusive to Leonarda and verbally abused her as well. She just made Leonarda feel very unwelcome and unwanted. Things would get worse for Leonarda because her father, Mariano, who she was close to, died when she was just a toddler. Amelia would end up remarrying and having other kids, which she, of course, loved them because they were planned, and Leonarda was still felt to feel like an outcast. So, because of all this, Leonarda actually tried to commit suicide twice as a young girl. She tried to hang herself. The first time the rope broke, and the second time somebody caught her and got her down. Leonarda then would just kind of wait out her childhood until she was old enough to escape from her mother. Now, Amelia had plans for her daughter Leonarda, of course. There were plenty of suitors that were interested in Leonarda, and some of them were pretty well off. So her mother arranged for Leonarda to marry a very wealthy suitor. Now, usually parents want their kids to grow up better than they did, but Amelia's agenda here was, when your kids marry a wealthy suitor, the whole family benefits from that. So Amelia was just interested in improving her financial situation. However, Leonarda had other plans. She wanted to get away from her mother, and she knew that wasn't possible if she ended up marrying the suitor. So she actually fell in love and married a lowly clerk from a post office who was actually quite a bit older than her. In 1917, she was 23 years old, and she ran off and married Raphael Pensardi. Amelia was livid, of course, but by then Leonarda was pretty used to that, so it wasn't anything new. She ended up disowning Leonarda, and Leonarda would state at this point that she believed her mother put a curse on her for marrying Raphael. So some time went on, and then the curse seemed to strike in 1927. Leonarda had been arrested and sent to prison for fraud. The family was having financial trouble when they started having children, because living on a, post office registry clerk's salary wasn't really making ends meet. Now, Leonarda had gotten a job too and had done some financial transactions that weren't exactly up to par. So she got caught and she served some time in prison. After she was released, the family moved to a different town for a fresh start. Then, in 1930, their home was destroyed in the Great Irpina earthquake. That was an earthquake that happened in 1930 in Italy and made thousands homeless. So after their house was destroyed, they were pretty much destitute, but they made one more move where they moved to Correggio, Italy. So getting arrested and the earthquake wasn't the only thing that Leonarda had dealt with over the years. During her marriage, Leonarda was actually pregnant 17 times. However, 3 of those pregnancies resulted in a miscarriage. 10 of her children died in childhood when they were very young of various ailments. So she only had 4 living children at this point, and she was fiercely protective of them. Now, Leonarda started exploring other types of religions and things like fortune telling and palm reading from the time she was very young to kind of help her cope. But unfortunately, she went to see a fortune teller right before she was married, and the fortune teller told her that she would marry and have many children. Unfortunately, she would outlive every single one of them. She also went to a palm reader, and the palm reader told her, in the right hand, I see you in prison, and on the left hand, I see you in an asylum. So both outlooks weren't great. So as you can imagine, after her mother's curse, her getting arrested for fraud, the earthquake, her miscarriages, her children dying young, she lived in a constant state of anxiety and paranoia. I mean, who wouldn't? It was pretty obvious that from her childhood until now, she developed a mental illness or 2 or 3, or back then there was really no help for somebody with what I assume to be clinical depression, anxiety, you name it, she probably had it at this point. So she just had to kind of cope on her own. And out of that, she became very superstitious. So that led her down yet another road. Now, when the family moved, Leonarda would end up opening a small shop where she sold homemade soaps and lotions and perfumes, and even made little tea cakes for her customers to eat while they browsed the store. She became actually very well respected in this shop, and the community embraced her. She was seen as a very good mom, just a great lady, but she also was starting to dabbling in doing fortune telling and palm reading herself. So a lot of people were coming to her for help in that area. Now, upon doing this, I'm sure Leonarda started out trying to be legit, but she realized that she would actually get more money from the people if she started telling them things they wanted to hear. So she kind of became a con artist of sorts. She started really paying attention to the people who came to her shop, and then she could point little things out in their life that they really wanted, and started making money that way, as well as her soaps. Now, Leonarda had a son, her oldest living son. His name was Giuseppe, and it was also her favorite child. In 1939, during the World War II, she discovered that he was going to join the Italian army. Now, Leonarda could not convince Giuseppe not to go. Giuseppe wanted to do his duty for his country and serve, and being fiercely protective of him, she convinced herself that the only way she could keep him alive is to practice human sacrifice. Leonarda believed in order to spare her son's life, one or more lives would have to be taken as sort of a trade or deal with the devil. Leonarda had a very short time before her son was to leave for the army, so she put her plan into action pretty quickly. Her first victim was a 73-year-old woman named Faustina Setti. Now, Faustina had been a lifelong spinster and never married, and even at 73, her whole goal in life was to just be married. So Leonarda had, fortune told or palm read for Faustina and told her that the husband she was looking for was actually in this town called Pola. Now, she swore Faustina to secrecy and gave her explicit instructions to follow in order to find this husband. And those instructions is that you must not tell anyone now, but you need to write letters to all your friends and family telling them of your plans to move to Pola to find this husband. And the night before you leave, come visit me and we will have a glass of wine to celebrate. Faustina was so desperate, she did everything Leonarda told her because Leonarda was a trusted community member. And on the night of her supposed departure, Faustina arrived at Leonarda's shop and they had a glass of wine to celebrate. What Faustina didn't know, though, is that Leonarda had drugged the wine. And when Faustina had become unconscious, Leonarda had grabbed an axe, drug her into a closet, and proceeded to dismember her body into 9 pieces. But that wasn't all. She would collect Faustina's blood in a large basin as well. What she did next comes from Leonardo's own words. I threw the pieces into a pot, added 7 kilos of caustic soda, which I had bought to make soap, and stirred the mixture until the pieces dissolved in a thick, dark mush that I poured into several buckets and then emptied into a nearby septic tank. As for the blood in the basin, I waited until it had coagulated, dried it in the oven, ground it and mixed it with flour, sugar, chocolate, milk, and eggs, as well as a bit of margarine. Kneading all the ingredients together, I made lots of crunchy tea cakes and served them to the ladies who came to visit, though Giuseppe and I also ate them. Now, Leonardo's next victim, that happened about 10 months later, was a 55-year-old gal named Francesca Soavi. Francesca had came to Leonarda for help in finding a job. Leonarda would tell her that in northern Italy, there will be a job opening at a girls' school that would be perfect for her. She also gave Francesca the same instructions. Tell no one, write letters to your friends and family, and come see me the night before you depart, and we will have a celebratory wine. And you guessed it, the same thing happened after Francesca became unconscious from the drugged wine. She was then dismembered, and her blood was used to make tea cakes. But also, Leonardo would take this woman's fat and she would boil it and make soap and candles with it as well to sell in her shop. Now, Francesca's family did look for her. They thought it was weird that Francesca would just up and leave for a job. The family knew that the last person that Francesca saw was Leonarda. So they went to Leonarda's shop to talk to Leonarda to try to get some more information. While they were talking, Leonarda, like a good host, served coffee and tea cakes to the family. Except these tea cakes were the special tea cakes and were made with Francesca. She's feeding the victim to the family. It's just so messed up. Anyway, the family seemed to be satisfied with Leonarda's explanation of what happened with Francesca, because Leonarda at this point became a great liar because she had been a con artist for so long. So the family left and all was well. That same month, Leonarda chose her third victim. This gal was 53 years old and her name was Virginia, oh boy, Cacioppo? Wow, I'm sorry. Anyway, she was 53 years old and she actually was looking for a job as well. Now, she was more well known in the community than the last two victims because she actually was or used to be a great singer. Because she was getting older, she wasn't offered as many jobs as a singer, so she needed a better paying job pretty much. So Leonarda did what she did best and told Virginia that there was a job in Florence, Italy for a mysterious impresario. Now, an impresario is someone that manages and often finances plays and concerts and such like that. So Virginia, of course, was very interested. The same instructions were given to Virginia, just like the other two. So on September 30th of 1940, Virginia would come visit Leonarda, cue the drug celebratory wine, the axe, dismembering, and collection of the blood. And here is Leonarda's own words about Virginia. She ended up in the pot like the other two. Her flesh was fat and white. When it had melted, I added a bottle of cologne, and after a long time on the boil, I was able to make the most acceptable creamy soap. I gave bars to neighbors and acquaintances. The tea cakes, too, were better. That woman was very sweet. Now that Leonarda had felt that she had made the most perfect soaps, candles, and the most perfect tea cakes, she wanted her son to bathe in one of the bars of soap she made from Virginia. She felt if Giuseppe was to bathe in the soaps made from Virginia and eat the tea cakes made from Virginia, that he would be protected both inside and out. So when her son came home, she told him that she drew him a bath and told him to get in it. Now, Giuseppe at this point is a grown man, but she insisted on bathing him like he was a child. After some arguing back and forth, Giuseppe apparently relented and let Leonardo bathe him with the soap, making sure that the soap covered every inch of his body. So after the worst bath in the world, Leonardo insisted that he come sit at the table and eat the tea cakes that were there. Giuseppe was freaked out at this point and refused to eat the cakes, and Leonardo pretty much force-fed him the cakes. Giuseppe would never look at his mom the same way after this, obviously. But Leonarda didn't care because she completed her mission and now her son was going to be safe. Now, just like Francesca, Virginia's sister-in-law became suspicious about Virginia's sudden disappearance. And she didn't believe that Virginia would just up and leave like she did, leaving her husband and everything for this supposed job in northern Italy. Virginia's sister-in-law started talking to the community, friends, neighbors, and she got word that the last place that Virginia was seen was Leonarda's shop. So she went and talked to Leonarda, and she was actually able to see through Leonarda's lies and was not very impressed with her. So she ended up going to the police and letting them know what she found out. The police would show up to Leonarda's shop, and Leonarda, again, as a good host, would serve them coffee and tea cakes that were made out of Virginia. She even got compliments from the police on the tea cakes. Now again, Leonarda lied her butt off, like she always does, and the cops were satisfied with her story. Now, some time went by and the investigation continued. They ended up finally getting enough evidence to arrest Leonarda, as they did realize that both Faustina and Francesca, who had both disappeared, were also seen last at Leonarda's place. Leonarda denied any wrongdoing and lied her butt off again, and again the police were satisfied with her story. Now, the kink in this was that the letters that they had gotten, that the family had turned over to the police, they were all postmarked from the same post office. So when authorities approached the post office and asked for a description of who was dropping these letters off, it wasn't Leonarda. It was Giuseppe. The authorities would then take Giuseppe into custody and accuse him of being involved in the disappearance of these three ladies. They thought that since he was leaving for the army soon, that he needed money, so he robbed them and most likely killed them. When Leonarda found out that her son was at the police station being questioned, she immediately rushed over there and immediately confessed that she was the one who committed these crimes and that the three ladies were in fact dead. At first, the authorities didn't believe her story based on her lies before, and they thought she was just trying to cover for her son. They also didn't believe that a woman of her age and stature would be able to pull off the crimes, let alone dismember a body. She told the authorities that she would prove it. There's one thing about Leonarda: if you questioned her or doubted her, she is going to prove to you what is up. So the authorities arranged for her to go to a morgue and dismember a dead body there, which she did in less than 15 minutes. Leonarda was then arrested and put in jail waiting for her trial. In 1946, she had her trial. She actually used the trial as sort of a confessional and often laughed. She would regularly correct the prosecutors if they got something wrong, and she was convicted. She was very unapologetic for what she did in both her confessions, during the trial, and throughout her time in prison. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison, followed by 3 years in a criminal asylum. Remember what the palm reader said? Right hand prison, left hand asylum. Was this palm reader legit, or was this more of a self-fulfilling prophecy? Now, Leonarda's husband, Raphael, did his best to stand by his wife. After all, he was a good man. However, the family was in shambles. The community had turned against the family for obvious reasons, and Raphael ended up turning to the bottle pretty heavily. Raphael would end up passing away right before the trial started. While Leonarda was serving time, she wrote a memoir entitled An Embitter's Soul's Confession. In it, she talks about the gory details of how she committed her murders and includes several authentic Italian recipes, including how to make soaps, candles, and tea cakes out of humans. Leonarda would end up dying of a brain bleed in the woman's criminal asylum on October 14th, 1970. She did not suffer. She laid down and went to sleep and never woke back up. Now, ironically, they would say that this brain bleed was actually caused by the caustic soda she used regularly. So, is that karma or coincidence? She was 76 years old when she died. Nobody came and claimed the body, so the prison ended up cremating her and quietly disposing of those remains. Giuseppe would end up going off to war. He never stopped by the jail to tell his mother goodbye or anything like that. There is no record of his death. There is record of his sign up in the military, his deployment, but it just kind of stops after that. So it's not known what exactly happened to him, but it's likely that he died on a battleground somewhere and did not outlive his mother. So the death of 3 women was all in vain. As for her other 3 children, they would all end up changing their names, and it's unknown if they outlived their mother or not. But it's possible. Now, there are several artifacts in the Criminological Museum in Rome that were donated from Leonarda. That includes the pot that the victims were boiled in, the axe she dismembered them with, and a boning knife that she got the fat off with. So if anybody has ever visited that museum, I would love for you to tell me all about it. So what are your thoughts on this case? Do you think the fortune teller and the palm reader were legit, or was she just following a path she thought she had to follow? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments down below. If you would like to become a feline friend, please hit that subscribe button, and I will be here next Friday with another true crime case or mystery. Bye guys!